So now we are going to move right along onto Mark Hughes, who is one of our illustrious members, and he is going to tell us all about Tesla's Battery Day.
You bet. Those of you who are probably alive probably know that Tesla had a Battery Day this past week. And so my little joke about that is that the bunny hops forward. And so in this day and age, how are you going to do a big PR event? Well, you know, you want to provide nice seating, you want to provide a nice atmosphere for people, you want to make sure everybody can hear you. So if you're Tesla, this is how you do that, which I thought was pretty cool. And it was also, so how do you do applause when you're doing this kind of meeting? Well, you have a horn button right in front of you. And a lot of people took advantage of that, and that is how they applauded various points during the presentation. So moving forward, I want to stop just for a minute and show you this. In the year 1900 in America, there were about 8,000 cars, and the biggest percentage was steam, as you see. But electric came in a close second, and gas was trailing a long way. And so why is that? It was because the gas engine was tough to start. You had to crank start it. It could break your arm. Okay, that's a drawback. A few little odds and ends like that. But Charles Kettering invented the electric starter, and all of a sudden, the gas car took over, because the electric car has never been about the motor. The gas car is always about the motor. But the electric car is not about the motor. We all know what that's about. It's about the battery. And the battery wasn't so good. So that was why the electric car went away. But as I say up there in the title, what once was will be once more. And why is that? Because of this. I very much appreciated this. This is a snapshot of a video that opened the Battery Day event. And of course, this is San Francisco. You recognize the iconic building there, and maybe others. And they panned over all of this. And this is, of course, during the fires and all that kind of stuff, which some people, including me, believe that it's related to climate change. And it was a real mess. And this is the problem. And of course, internal combustion engines are a part of the blame group on that. But they went on, which is nice, to say, you know what, we have some good news. 76% of all the new electricity capacity in the US this past year, 32 gigawatts of power. And by the way, I just finished making a trip from San Diego to Kansas and back, and the number of windmills out there is staggering. It's also quite interesting to drive beside a windmill blade as it's being transported down I-40. Watching that thing flex as you're coming by is kind of exciting. Yeah, and so anyway, in 2010, as it says, a lot of power generated with coal. That is ending quickly, okay? Oh, good Lord, that threw me back. So now, the other piece of this is Tesla is doing their part. Over 1 million electric vehicles sold, 26 billion miles. Now think about how much CO2 that would have been otherwise. So, well, and of course, we know some of that electricity was generated with fossil fuels. Okay, we got that, but we still reduced it a tremendous amount. They've delivered 5 gigawatt hours of stationary batteries, which is huge. And they've already installed 17 terawatt hours, which is incredible, of solar panels. But they know they're not getting there, and that batteries are a huge piece of it. They've got to build more factories, less costly factories, and produce better batteries. And so here is the plan, the big plan. There are two bars there, if you notice. The lower one, the segmented red bar. The upper one, if you notice, 0.006 terawatt hours of batteries produced in 2019. We have a long way to go because we need to get to 10 terawatt hours. And here they nicely broke it down into electricity, coal heating that we have to replace, gas heating that has to be replaced, oil heating that has to be replaced, the cars that have to be replaced, and then the future growth that goes along with it. So that's their number one goal. Here's the issue, though, is that given the way the battery factory, the gigafactory is produced, is designed right now, you can't scale it fast enough. To do 20 terawatt hours, you'd have to build 135 gigafactories. 2 trillion investment, 2.8 million people involved. That's not going to happen. Okay? Can't be done. So we got to find something else. And I love the fact that they are really working on this and leading the way into figuring out how to solve this problem. So that's goal number one and its problem. Goal number two is to come up with more affordable batteries. This is the cost curve from 2013 project through 2020 and projected out to 2025. It's coming down, but it's starting to plateau. So that's not good. So this is the goal. We got to build more affordable cells, significantly more affordable cells. But here's the problem. The EV market share is growing, but they're still expensive enough that people aren't getting into it, right? So it does look like it's a nice little S curve, but it's still got a ways to go. So those are the two goals. Those are the two problems. Here is their plan. 5 pieces. Redesign the cell. Redesign the factory. Redo anode materials. Rethink cathode materials. And then rethink how you integrate those batteries into the vehicle. So they started with a complete blank sheet of paper, and they said, what do we do with cell design? And here's what they found out. The bigger the diameter of the cell, the less it costs. But if you look at what happens to vehicle range, there's a sweet spot. So you can't just keep getting bigger and bigger cells. Eventually, the range starts to bend over, as it shows here, with the x-axis being the outer diameter of the cell in millimeters, and the y-axis is percent improvement. So they struck a line at 46 millimeters, and they said that's going to be the diameter of the new cell, which is significantly bigger. The current cells are 21, which is why that curve starts. If you notice on the far left end, it starts at 21 millimeters. The current cells are 21 meters in diameter, 70 meters tall. They also had another little problem with the current 2170 cells. You have to put a little tab in the cell to attach to the plates that are in there. And that has several drawbacks. Number one, it's a manufacturing problem. Number two, it's a capacity problem. So they came up with, and don't ask me to explain this, even though I'm an engineer, I still didn't follow this, but they came up with this multi-ribbed kind of top to the anode and the cathode. And this is the top view of that cell, and kind of bizarre looking, but it ends up being, as it shows here, simpler to manufacture, fewer parts, and because that tab was in one place on this long strip of cathode and anode, when you make all of these edges part of the conductor, there's a huge reduction in electrical path, which turns into a lot of benefits. And speaking of benefits, here they are. So this new cell holds 5 times the energy of the previous 2170 cell. The 16% increase in range and a 6 times increase in power. So let's start adding these up. From that change to the battery design and those edge tabs, if you want to call them, you get a 14% reduction in dollars per kilowatt hour, okay? The next step is then to go and redesign the machine that builds the machine. In other words, the machine being the battery. And there's a bunch of pieces to that. There's a tremendous amount of detail I can't bring into this short presentation, but it essentially involves thinking of the factory as a highway. And right now, the Gigafactory is a bus route with a lot of stops. Imagine a bus going through a downtown area. What they want to get to is I-5 between LA and San Francisco. And that's the design they're going for. When you redesign the factory, as they have done, as they have put the pieces together, and they have a pilot plant built, here's the effect. 75% reduction in investment. In other words, the cost of the factory goes down 75% per gigawatt hour. So if you look at the original Gigafactory, it could produce 150 gigawatt hours a year. The new Terafactory with this new design can produce 1 terawatt in a smaller footprint than the original Gigafactory. 10 times smaller per gigawatt. That's revolutionary. You know, a lot of reviewers said the battery day wasn't a big deal. I don't think they understood this piece. So, because of the factory redesign, we get another 18% in the reduction of the battery cost. Okay, and then we get into anode materials, which I'm not going to get into because it's pretty complicated, a lot of chemistry, a lot of type of stuff. We're just going to jump to cathode materials. But we did get a 5%, not a big deal, but you know, 5% when you're talking about a lot of batteries is still something worth, you know, putting in your pocket. So they got into cathode materials. Now, how many of you have wondered about the amount of lithium in the world? You know, because we know these are lithium-ion batteries. We also, some of us, maybe all of us, know the lithium isn't damaged in the battery. When the battery finally, quote, dies, you can harvest the lithium. It's going to be okay, right? That's an important piece. Well, here was another eye-opener. There is enough lithium in Nevada alone to electrify the entire U.S. fleet. Trucks, cars, buses, everything. And they have come up with a way of removing lithium from the clay that's in Nevada with salt water. So you essentially take the dirt out, the clay out, soak it in salt water. That pulls in the lithium. You take that dirt and you put it back in the ground. That was really nice to hear. And they have already bought a plot of land that is terawatt hour scale in Nevada. I slept better that night knowing that was the case.
Mhm.
Now, on top of that, the cheapest way to get lithium is from recycling. And they're already starting to recycle. But this is the curve showing where they're going to get the lithium in the future. Okay? And that was also really good to hear. They're building recycling facilities to be able to bring this stuff all back, turn it all around again, so we don't need to shave the earth of all its lithium that's out there. And by the way, lithium is way up there on the availability of minerals in the Earth's crust. So that was the cathode part of the equation. So that results, the changes they're making there result in another 12% reduction in the cost of producing batteries. Lastly was integrating the cell into the vehicle. Now you might look at that, you might think, wait a minute, our cars already, if we're driving an EV, they already have a battery in the car. What are we talking about here? Well, here's what we're talking about. Now, in my past, I actually worked at Boeing early on, shortly after the Earth cooled. And I remember learning at that point, because this was in Wichita, Kansas, which is where the military side of Boeing was. They built the B-52 and KC-135 and that kind of stuff. And I heard talk of a wet wing. And I said, what is a wet wing? Well, this is it. If you look at the upper wing, that's the way that airplanes were built, say, during World War II and earlier, is you had this space inside the wing, and so you put a tank inside there. And that stuff that's in red is stuff you didn't need, because you could do it like the picture on the bottom, which is essentially the wing becomes the tank. So you just eliminate that red metal tank and you make the wing the tank itself. And if you've ever watched them fill a jet airliner, if you pay attention, that's exactly what they're doing. It's kind of hard to tell from the inside, but that is what's going on. So how do you adapt that to an electric vehicle? Well, this is how you do it. Our Teslas or our electric cars are built just like with the previous slide, in the shot above. You have this, the blue is the batteries, the red is this stuff you don't need, because the batteries are in this outer casing, kind of like the gas tank in the wing of the airplane. The way to change that is to wrap the batteries in a enclosure with flame retardant adhesive inside, and make that entire thing a structure for the frame. And it is so strong that Elon said, and hey, if Elon said, it has to be true, right? No, but I believe him on this one, that if you were to make a convertible out of whatever Tesla had this structural battery in, it would be stronger than a comparable electric vehicle without this design and with its top. And I believe that, because when you glue these batteries top and bottom together like this becomes an incredibly tough structural element, very resistant to shear forces, twisting motions, all that kind of stuff. So they've got this revolution both in the battery design, engineering, and in the body. And it results in these improvements that you're seeing here: 10% mass reduction, 14% increase in range possible, 370 fewer parts. That's huge, considering somebody has to handle every one of those parts, or a robot does. So let's add it up. Turns out 56% reduction per kilowatt hour. Now, it's really rare in industry to take something like a EV cell that's been in development for as long as it has, and to produce this kind of cost reduction. Very significant. But that's just the cell. If you look at the overall effect of all these pieces, this is what it looks like. The range increase, and we can add up all these blocks here in this waterfall chart, 54% increase in range from these pieces that I've just shown. There's our 56% in the center, adding those all up. But even more importantly, the reduction of investment per gigawatt hour, 69%, which is truly incredible. It won't take nearly as much capital to build the factories that they need to build. And then this is what happens. This is their projection of what's going to happen to battery cost over the next 3 years. That it's going to be a disjuncture in this curve, which is exactly what they needed to do. And if they can get it all to work, they still have some pieces to get together, but if they can get it all to work, this is what's going to happen. Lastly, they teased us a little bit. I know that's not like Tesla at all, not a bit, but they did tease us and said that their goal is to put out a $25,000 passenger car with self-drive. So it's going to count that piece. I think Elon is counting on all of us who bought our Teslas early on and paid our $6,500, $7,000, $8,000 to basically be able to almost give away the self-drive by that point. Which, okay, fine, I'm okay to be part of that. And that is it for me.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Mark. That
No
was
problem.
awesome. Anybody have any questions?
So Mark, did they talk about what the range would be on that $25,000 vehicle?
That one is a ways out there yet. I did not hear anything. I don't remember hearing anything on that. So yeah, no, I don't. Oh, by the way, I didn't talk about it, but they did show a video of the Plaid going around Laguna Seca. And I recommend you all look that up. It's pretty damn impressive. Over 1,100 horsepower. I think it would leave the Porsche Taycan behind.
That's pretty wild. That's
Hey, Mark,
awesome.
this is Simon, Mark. Before this battery, there was all kinds of talk about a 1,000,000-mile battery. And we know we've seen some of the stuff. Was there any talk at all about that during Tesla's battery day?
You know, Simon, I think this is why reporters were a little bit disappointed, is he did not mention that.
Okay.
But yeah. So there was, but I think that what they have done is nothing short of incredible, and I look forward to I hope they achieve it, because their overall goal is saving us from this climate crisis, and it's going to take everything that they're doing, and I'm so glad to see they're stepping up and putting everything they have into it. Yeah, I mean, they're going to make some money too. Yeah, there's that, but I think they care about this planet.
Hey,
Definitely.
Mark, I just wanted to chime in as well. I thought it was very interesting when you were talking about the amount of lithium in the clay in Nevada and how that would be enough to power the entire U.S. fleet of vehicles. I'm also wondering about this. I'm not sure if they addressed this or not, but that also has an application for battery storage systems, which, from what I understand, also use lithium and are similar to the batteries in cars. And so what would something like that do in terms of the future cost of battery storage systems, availability of battery storage systems? If there's that much lithium out there and available, aren't we going to see like costs really come down on that technology as well?
Absolutely, John. Yeah, I mean, it's what I just showed there applies to storage batteries just as well.
Okay, that's something to look forward to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to look back on what I spent for my battery and cry, I suppose.
It's all good. It's all good. So
Mm.
yeah, our
Another thing to point out,
thanks
John,
again.
is that
Go
a
ahead.
existing car battery, once it's done with its useful life because it's able to not hold the same level of charge and be able to deliver it that fast, that same battery pack or those cells could be used in a domestic backup system or your part of your solar system on a home and live a long time there. So it doesn't necessarily have to go straight from a car to recycle the basic lithium back into a new car battery.
Yeah, no, that's true, and that is kind of the standard, one of the standard approaches to take these days. I don't know where things are going to go from here. By the way, I also like to point out Tesla has taken a huge risk on all this stuff because, as you all probably know, I mean, this is a very fluid science in terms of battery, lithium ion, and all that kind of stuff. They're taking a huge risk that something really incredible won't pop up, next week or next year or 2 years from now and leave them stranded. This is a hairy, hairy game they are playing.
Well, thanks again, Mark. That was awesome.